What's up, guys? 2-1 night in the NBA, improving to 13-6 on the NBA this year. The NBA continues to be really good for me. It's been my best over the last couple of years. Could have been 14-5, and it looked like it was really going to be that way. It was very close to being a 3-0 night. Also, could have been 12-7 on the year. That was close to being a 1-2 night in some aspects as well. But we had two games that both landed within a half point of the number, one on the right side and one on the wrong side. And in both of those games, there were big point swings at the end, so it looked like they were both going to go in the opposite direction. So that's just kind of crazy. And unfortunately, the one that landed on the losing side was the last game of the night. So you have that. You get to a point where you're like 97% to have a 3-0 night. You're like, yep, it's done. We got the 3-0. It's crazy. Got lucky on that first one, but now we're going 3-0. Nope, then you get unlucky at the end of that one, lose it, and it's not a good way to close out the night. I would much rather have that bad swing for the loss to be the earlier game and then have the miracle comeback to get within the number be the later of those two games. But what can you do? That also shows the importance of getting the best number because I'll talk about all three games really quickly. So the first game of the night was the Detroit Pistons, who continue to be my miracle team. They were hosting the 76ers. That was the game where I had just packed it in, put it away. I stopped looking at it because they were down like 20 in the fourth quarter or something around that. I was just like, it's over. They're not going to cover, even though I had them as a pretty big underdog. They needed to get within 8.5. And I think there were some 9s on the board at some point during the day, but I didn't think there was that much of a difference between 9 and 8.5, although every point does matter, as we find out. But luckily, it did not matter in this case for me. But they were still down 16 or 18 with like a minute and a half left, and they somehow were able to make like an 8 or 10 point run, have an 8 or 10 point edge in that final minute and a half to get just within the number there. Detroit, miracle team, baby. They've continued to be like the best team in the NBA for me. Like, it seemed like every time I took them last year, they won. It was one of their wins, one of their few wins on the season. I was on almost all of them, and I was like rarely on them otherwise. Crazy. As big underdogs, similar to last night. And last night, they were able to not win outright, which the case last year, they were winning outright in like all these games that I was on. But last night, they at least got to within that cover. I think the 76ers probably took their foot off the gas at the end with such a big lead there. Thankfully for me, Detroit didn't stop trying, and they got right within the number. They got within the back door right at the end. That was one of the craziest backdoor covers that I've ever seen. Get right in the back door. It's not exactly my preference as far as getting it done, but there you go. The second game was a little bit less of a sweat, even though it looked like it was going to be a loser in the middle of the game for stretches. But Charlotte Hornets, they won the game outright as a small underdog. They came through. That was good. That was also a number where I took them at 2, I think, and there were points during the day where it was at 3.5, up like 3 and 3.5 even, so that's not great. Losing out on that 1 point of value. And 2 and 3 are kind of key-ish numbers in the NBA a little bit, but thankfully it didn't matter because they won the game outright, so they covered all those numbers. So that was good. And then the blow, not really a death blow because I had a winning night last night, but the blow where it was a big swing because it looked like there's a big difference between going 3-0 and going 2-1 here because it's like a 2-bet swing basically when you drop from 3-0 to 2-1, really, because then you only have a 1-bet advantage on the night instead of a 3-bet advantage, and when you're betting the same amount on all of them. The New Orleans Pelicans, they were looking like they weren't going to win at some points as well, which of course they wound up not winning, but they were still like in the game pretty much the whole time. And then by the end of it, with a minute and a half left in that game, they were up 5 or something like that. They were winning by 5, and I needed them to cover the 2, which is unfortunate because there were 2.5s. It may have even gotten to 3. I think it might have gotten to 3 out there. No, I was on 2.5. I was on 2.5 in that one, but I think there were 3s on the board during the day, and I was like, 2.5 to 3. It's not great, but I don't sweat that much. But last night there was reason to do so. But they were up 5. It shouldn't have even been a factor. Like a minute and a half left. They let that entire thing slip, and then all of a sudden I look and they're down 3 with like 6 seconds left. I'm like, what just happened? Like, what the hell just happened? So they go from looking like probably they're going to win outright, but for sure they're going to wind up covering this at least. No, they're a half point off of covering now, and they would have at least pushed the 3 if I'd gotten the 3. But no, and then what happens? Some ridiculous stuff where the Houston Rockets intentionally fouled, which does make sense in that situation with a few seconds left. You intentionally foul so that you don't let them get a 3-point attempt to try to tie the game. That happened. Larry Nance Jr., I think, was sent to the line for the Pelicans, who I don't believe is their best free throw shooter, and he missed the first free throw. I'm like, this is so bad. So bad. Like, they're going to lose it right here on missed free throws. If you get that free, like, at least get one free throw, and then you're covering again. But he should have gotten both of them, and if he had made both of them, they would have covered the spread. But he missed the first one, then he got the second one, so now they're covering again by a half point. Everything's just shifting between, in that half point range, between half point winner, half point loser, half point winner, half point loser. I'm like, come on, man, come on. So they're within the spread now, down 2, but I'm like, well, shit, there's still like 3 seconds left in the game or whatever, 3 or 2 seconds. They're going to intentionally foul because they want to get the ball back for one more final possession with like a second left. So that's what they did. They intentionally fouled with a second left, and I don't even know who it was for the Rockets. Whoever it was, I believe he made the first free throw, which then I wasn't watching it, but I think this is what happened at least. He made the first free throw to put them back over the 2.5 number. So now I just lost the bet by a half point. Losing by a half point in the last second. It's just the worst. It's one of the worst possible ways to lose, really. I don't know if I'm going to say it's not like the worst beat that I've taken of all time, but it definitely was bad. Should have won that one. So they're up 3 now, and then I believe he missed the second one intentionally, so that which is what you kind of want to do. So the Pelicans have to go the length of the court, and they can't really do anything with 1 second. You have to get the rebound and shoot it. That's not going to happen. So I think that's what happened there. So Houston somehow wound up winning by 3, despite being down 5 with a minute and a half left. I lose the game. Terrible, absolutely terrible. We move on. I'm not going to have any NBA plays tonight. Although I will say it does look like there's been movement moving the Celtics down from 10.5 to 8, which looks somewhat significant to me on the board here at home. So I don't know exactly what the thinking is there. They're coming off, I believe, another win against Brooklyn where they won and covered, where I thought they might not be in a great spot to cover that, but they still were able to cover that. They're hosting the Toronto Raptors. I don't have a strong situational opinion there, but I can tell you it does look like the number has dropped fairly significantly on the Celtics for whatever reason, whatever being the case there. In hockey, I looked at the board and I was like, don't want to play this game, don't want to play this game. Then I got to the bottom half of these games. So the afternoon games don't appeal to me. Then I get into the night games, and then bottom half of these I'm like, whoa, I like this, I like this. Oh, man. All right, so what do we got going on here? I'm going to have 3 plays here. The first one is going to be on the New York Islanders, and have to lay a bit of a price here. I laid 180, minus 180, which is about the biggest that I'll lay. If a money line gets above that, I'm going to usually lay a puck line on it instead to get a better price if I like that favorite. But the Islanders, even though here it looks like they've dropped from minus 185 to minus 171, I even saw minus 167 here. I don't know what book is being tracked there because I didn't see it in any of the books. All the books I saw were in the 180 range, Even though the market percentages here also look like 67% of the tickets on the Islanders, but 60% of the money on Washington. So this market read here all looks like it's on the side of Washington. I don't know if I buy any of that because this minus 171 line that's being shown here doesn't exist in any of the books I'm looking at on the Islanders. I don't think the line has moved down that significantly, and if it did, I think it's been moving back up. I don't know if I buy the cash percentage being on the Washington side. Why is that the case? Well, let's look at the situation here. Why am I actually going to lay the minus 180 in this case with the Islanders? You got a few things going on here. One thing is that I think the line looks a bit sus. It looks suspicious because you have the Capitals sitting at 6-4-2, and you got the Islanders with a worse record than that, although somewhat close, I think, 5-4-3. So you look at that and you say, why is the team with the slightly worse record a big favorite? I mean, I know you get home ice, but like, aren't they the slightly worse team? So why is this line saying they're certainly the better team, plus getting home ice here? Why is that the case? Well, I trust the odds makers more than I trust just eyeballing teams' records. So they're telling you the Islanders are actually the somewhat better team here, and maybe the situation's factoring in a little bit too, because recreational bettors are probably going to look and say, we just saw Washington play, and they looked not bad these last couple of games. They took Florida, the returning conference champs, into OT on Wednesday. Then they went out to New Jersey to start the road trip on Friday, and they won. But you remember, that was last night. So they're going to be in a third game in 4 nights and a back-to-back. And all 3 of those games have been in different cities. So they lost at home in OT on Wednesday to Florida. Went out to New Jersey, but remember, on my video, I said New Jersey was in the worst situation out of the hockey slate yesterday. I wish I bet it. I was close to betting Washington in that one because New Jersey's spot was so bad. I just thought Washington was coming off that tough game against Florida. It was maybe a little bit iffy, but they were starting a road trip. New Jersey was returning from a road trip. Like, the angles were just lining up on Washington there. So I think that explains somewhat of why Washington was able to beat New Jersey, even though New Jersey is the better team of the two. Washington won as like a pretty substantial underdog. So now I think recreational bettors are going to look at that and think they looked good. They just beat a good team in New Jersey. Well, of course they're going to beat the Islanders, who are worse than New Jersey, right? It's that, recreational, almost like, I don't know, I wouldn't call it syllogistic maybe in this case. Maybe it kind of is, but yeah. Every game's an individual situation, man. Like I keep saying, and I think this is a sandwich for the Capitals after doing that. Those 2 like step-up games. You play the conference champs close into overtime and lose at home to Florida. You get out on the road. You catch New Jersey in a bad spot coming home from a road trip. They're a good team. They were in the playoffs last year. You beat them. Knock them off. Now you go to play the Islanders, who is a team that nobody really pays much attention to. And who do you have up next on Tuesday? You come back home and you play Vegas, the returning Stanley Cup champs. So you have this sandwiched in basically between both finals teams from last year and one of the other good teams in hockey. This is a down spot for them in the roster. And like I said, it's a back-to-back, a third game in 4 days. All 3 of those games were different cities. So it's not a good rest spot, and it's a sandwich spot for the Capitals. That's why I don't like it. The Islanders, they played 2 nights ago. They lost to the Bruins, which is a big game, but they lost fairly badly in that game. So it wasn't like a game where it was a game where they played it tough, played it that close. Nah, that wasn't the case. They're on a 3-game skid right now. And this is going to be their single home game in this homestand, and I think they know that it's a winnable game. And when you've lost that many games in a row, I think you can't totally afford to be completely unfocused here. And Washington has been playing well recently, so that might help them be focused on them as an opponent here. Even though the Islanders did beat Washington in Washington's own house back 9 days ago, actually. So that's the one thing that like gives me slight hesitation, but I don't think it's enough to keep me off of it in a spot like this. So that might be the one reason why Washington might still have a little bit of focus here, is that the Islanders shut them out in their own house back on the 2nd. But that's the only thing that is something that would have me leaning against the Islanders at all here. I like the Islanders, but you have to lay the price for it, the minus 180. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm doing that. I think out of the 3 of these, that might be the weakest, though. Second play is going to be, what did I take? Is going to be against the Nashville Predators. And it looks like the Predators have gone down from minus 160 on the money line to minus 144. 75% of the tickets on them, but 82% of the cash. Not sure I buy that discrepancy, because it looks like the number has moved down on them significantly. So it looks like there is some substantial or respected money going against the Predators here, and I agree with going against them, of course. So I took the Arizona Coyotes, Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona Coyotes. I took Arizona plus 130 in this one. I was able to still snag a plus 130. They're mostly in like the 115, 120 range out there, but I'm okay with that as well. Like the underdog price, I think is good. I wouldn't want to lose too much value on it, let it get too close to being almost like a pick 'em price, but I think they have the edges in this game, so I like them as an underdog price because I think they maybe should not even be the underdog here, not sure, but the Predators are coming home from a 5-game road trip that took them out to the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada. And they had a bad road trip and went 1-4 on that road trip. And the only team they were able to beat on the road trip was Edmonton, who I'm going to talk about shortly. That might indicate where I'm going in the third play that I have. Nashville's coming home from a road trip, played poorly on the road trip, although they lost to some decent teams out there. I mean, Vancouver, Seattle, Winnipeg, they're all winning teams. Not that much of a shame in those. Losing to Calgary doesn't look great. But they're coming home, and people might look and think, well, Nashville's coming home now, so they're going to bounce back, right? That's the kind of what the recreational kind of knee-jerk reaction might be to returning home. Well, road games are tougher, right? You had a tough road trip. You're going to come back home. Now you're back home. You're going to have an advantage. You're going to play better, right? That tends to be the opposite of the case in that first game back from a road trip. As I always say, it tends to be a distraction. When you've been on the road for that long, you have to travel back, and in this case, they only had 1 day off to do that. That's not a lot of time off. You have travel, fairly decent amount of travel in this case from the Pacific Northwest area. You're coming back home. These guys are adults. They have families. They have to deal with home life, the home situation. They don't have that much time to do that. And then I believe in Nashville's case, oh no, they're staying home for, this is starting homestand, so never mind. I thought they were going out on the road again, but that's not the case. But still, they come home. They don't have that much time to turn around, and they have to play Arizona. And Arizona, I mean, they've been kind of one of the lowly teams in hockey recently, even though they're a 500 team this year. I don't know how focused you might be on an Arizona team that's coming in there. And you do have Anaheim up next, who's got a better record than Arizona does, although only slightly. But it just feels like Arizona's the worst team between them and Anaheim because Anaheim made a little bit of noise there with a couple of big wins against big teams. So you might not get entirely focused on Arizona when it's that first game and you're returning home from that road trip. I don't think it's like an immediate bounce back. I think it's a distracted spot, so I look immediately to go against that team there, which in this case is the Predators. Arizona, what have they done? They are playing a second game of a road trip, and they started the road trip and lost the first game a couple days ago to St. Louis. So they have had less travel, at least, though, because that's not that far away from Nashville. So they lost that first game. I think that might cause them to be focused here because you're coming off a loss, so you might be in a bounce-back situation there, even though they do have Dallas up next. You might be paying attention to Nashville, who they haven't been playing that bad. You're a 500 team. You want to get above 500 there just because that kind of feels better than not being above 500, and you were above 500 prior to that game. So a little bit of motivation on Arizona there, and I think Arizona's going to have Ingram in net. They've been alternating between Ingram and Vejmelka. I don't know how you even pronounce that name, but Ingram is the somewhat better of their two goalies this season. Connor Ingram, he's 4-1 on the season. They've won the last 4 games he's been in net. He's got a 2.47 goals allowed average on this season and a 91.9 save percentage. Vejmelka's numbers have been somewhat worse than that. He's got a 2.97 goals allowed average, which isn't bad, really, and a 90.8 save percentage. None of those is bad, but they're 2-5-1 with him in net. So they've been a lot better with Ingram in net, even though their stats are like somewhat similar. They've won their last 4 games with Ingram in net, and they've lost the last 4 with Vejmelka in net. So actually, I think they've lost their last 5 with him in net. So they've been alternating wins and losses, and like all the wins have been with Ingram in net, and all the losses have been with Vejmelka. And it looks like they're lying because they've been going just alternating between those two. So it looks like Ingram should get the start. I don't think that's confirmed, but I think it will be him. So that, I think, gives Arizona just a little bit more of an edge there because they've been playing better with him in net than with Vejmelka in there. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Arizona Coyotes, plus 130 in that case. And the final play, another one that I do quite like, Edmonton Oilers. This one looks like a trap. Minus 125 on the road. And it looks like Seattle, the Kraken. What's Kraken? The Kraken. I still hate that name. I think it's such a lame name. They got the pastel colors, playing in a carbon-neutral arena. We're environmentally friendly, man. We're a bunch of eco losers up in Seattle there. Whatever. Seattle's got 62% of the tickets, only 57% of the cash. So it looks like the cash discrepancy is on the side of Edmonton here as well. Edmonton is a road favorite here. Looks like a trap because you're going to look at Edmonton's 2-9-1. How are they possibly a favorite at Seattle, who's 5-6-3? And both of these teams were playoff teams last year, so I don't know if that's going to factor into it that much. But both of these teams might be a little bit underperforming their talent level so far this year. I think with Edmonton, that is certainly the case. Edmonton, just like last year, I think it is the case that they're a team that can score, but their defense and goaltending situation is a bit of a mess. That was the case last year as well. But people are going to look at this and think, how could Edmonton, a 2-9 team, be a favorite on the road against a near 500 team? The books are telling you, just like last year, Edmonton is actually the somewhat better team here. Enough so that they're laying a price on the road, even though they're 2-9. You look at their 2-9-1, you look at their schedule, it really hasn't been easy. They have 3 losses against Vancouver, and even though they allowed a ton of goals in all those games, like I said, they do give up a lot of goals. But Vancouver's one of the better teams in hockey this year, so no shame in that, really. They have a loss against Dallas, a loss against Nashville, a loss against the Rangers, a loss against Minnesota. Winnipeg's a winning team. So all of their losses pretty much are to winning teams, and almost all of them, except maybe the Philadelphia one. So they've had a pretty tough schedule. But now what's going on? The situation they're in now, they just lost to San Jose. It doesn't get much worse than that. Like, all their other losses are pretty excusable, but you lose to San Jose, man, like, that's embarrassing. A team that's been kind of a laughing stock because they gave up 10 goals 2 straight games. Well, Edmonton, your defense is almost as bad as San Jose's. Well, losing to San Jose, that's still got to be something that's going to refocus you. You don't want to lose to San Jose in any situation. That's just ridiculous. I think that's going to cause Edmonton to refocus. You can't do that, and this is going to be the third and final game of this road trip here, where they lost to Vancouver pretty badly in the first game of the road trip. So maybe that San Jose game, I don't know, when you're on a losing streak like that, I don't know how you can overlook anybody, but maybe they kind of overlooked them because it was between Vancouver and Seattle, who are 2 better teams than San Jose. I mean, everybody's better than San Jose, but you lose to a team that's been like a laughing stock for being how bad they are, San Jose, you got to bounce back, man. That's got to be something that irritates you, that sticks in your craw. You're going to have to refocus here. So I like that aspect of this. And looking at Seattle, what's going on with their schedule? Well, they just had a 2-game road trip. They're returning home with 1 day off. It's not a long road trip. They stayed out in the west and kind of mountain time area. They went to Arizona, lost in a shootout. And then they went to Colorado, into elevation, and they beat the Colorado Avalanche. Still one of the best teams in hockey, I would say, Colorado. They're being lined that way by the odds makers, at least. They're a good team. You go into their house in elevation, you beat Colorado. That's a big game. Now you have to come out of elevation, come back home, and play a 2-9 Edmonton team. I mean, how focused are you exactly going to be for that? I don't know. But that's the situation that the Kraken are in here. They're in a letdown spot coming off of Colorado, coming to play Edmonton, a 2-9 team who just lost to the Sharks, which, again, people are going to see that and think, how is Edmonton a favorite on the road? Like, that can't possibly be. There's got to be that has to be a mistake. There's got to be value in taking Seattle as the home underdog, right? Again, I don't think so. They're in a letdown coming off the game against Colorado. And who do they have next? 2 days from now on Monday? They're hosting Colorado again. So they're in a nice avalanche sandwich here. They're getting, the snow is pouring down all over them, man. They're getting crushed by this Av sandwich. Are they really going to be able to get out of that snow, get out of the way of that, and focus for this Edmonton team with a horrible record? Maybe not. So that's what I'm thinking there. Those are my thoughts there. Seattle, yeah, they're in a bad spot, man. They're in a gigantic sandwich, the Colorado Avalanche sandwich. So I like that as well. Edmonton, what did I lay in that one? Minus 115. So you can get, there are some prices around that range out there. This video is going long just to talk about hockey. I don't have that much in college basketball, so nothing really to say there. I'll probably have some more college basketball plays coming up soon, especially once college football isn't taking over Saturday completely. College basketball will start taking Saturday over. We'll start getting some better matchups eventually, and not these like big mismatches in a lot of these basketball games. I have 4 plays in college football as well, which are in my video that's up there. That's on the channel. You can go see it. Once again, the 3 plays in hockey today are the Islanders minus 180, the Coyotes plus 130, and the Oilers minus 150. That's going to do it. I'm Toad. Peace. Have a good college football Saturday, man. I hope we get these wins. We got a lot of plays on the board today. I think 7 plays. Let's do it.